the Ontario Citizens' Assembly on the Electoral Reform.
And we have a message for our fellow Ontarians.
Who are we? We're 52 women
and 52 men. We range in age
from 19 to 78.
We have and have had a variety of occupations.
We were born in Ontario.
And we were not born here.
We're 103 Ontarians. We were selected at random.
One of us from each riding in Ontario.
Except for George Thompson, the government appointed him to be our chair.
He makes it 104. He was one of us, except that his job was to be neutral.
We are the Ontario Citizens' Assembly on Electoral Reform, and the government gave us a task to do on your behalf.
We were asked to learn about electoral systems.
That is the system we use to vote and how our votes are counted.
And how votes are translated into seats in the legislature, the provincial parliament.
For 8 months, we studied Ontario's system, the one we've been using since 1792, and many different systems used in other countries.
The next part of our task was to consult with our fellow Ontarians to find out what you think.
Finally, we debated and discussed what we had learned
and what we had heard. Then we decided.
Si on recommanderait de maintenir le système actuel ou de le changer.
This is important. Our electoral system is a fundamental part of our democracy.
So a task like this is usually given to expert panels
or legislative committees or royal commissions.
But the Citizens' Assembly approach trusted in the ability of ordinary citizens.
Citizens like you, like us.
This was a first in Ontario.
It was democracy at work.
Comment est-ce qu'on a fait? On a commencé à parler au sujet des principes.
What do Ontarians value most in an electoral system?
The government regulation that created the Assembly gave us a list of principles to keep in mind
when weighing the different ways people vote around the world.
Legitimacy, fairness of representation, voter choice.
Effective parties, stable and effective government, effective parliament,
stronger voter participation and accountability.
We added another one ourselves that we thought was important. Simplicity and practicality.
Nous n'étions pas des experts quand nous avons commencé, mais nous avons appris.
Over many weekends and in between weekends, we learned together.
Our academic director, Dr. Jonathan Rose, led the learning. We also heard from university professors, former MPPs, and other experts on electoral systems.
Then we asked you what other voters think. We had 41 public consultation meetings all over Ontario.
It was during the winter, but we heard from about 3,000 people. We were glad to hear from them all.
People sent us written comments too. More than 1,000 of them, more than 3,500 pages. That gave us a lot to think about.
We didn't just wait for people to come to us, we reached out to the public. We had special meetings for people who don't usually go to public consultations.
We talked to service organizations, community groups, and business associations.
There was even an assembly for high school students, and they came and presented their recommendation to us.
Those students were amazing, smart, engaged, optimistic. They showed us how young people can get excited about the political process if given the right opportunities.
When we deliberated, it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy. Remember, we were selected at random.
We had different perspectives.
Different backgrounds, different views. But none of us represented any particular group.
We were representing all of Ontario. We had a common goal.
Our goal was to decide on the best electoral system for Ontario, one that reflected all of our values.
After all our learning and consultations, after weeks of deliberation,
we decided to recommend a new electoral system for Ontario.
We decided on a made-in-Ontario solution.
It preserves the best of the electoral system we have now, strong local representation,
and adds new elements to produce more proportional election results. This means that the share of seats each party wins will be roughly equal to the share of votes it receives.
We recommend that Ontario changes to a mixed-member proportional system.
Why did we choose mixed-member proportional, or MMP for short?
We think it reflects the values that are most important. Greater voter choice, voters should be able to choose their preferred candidate and choose their preferred party too.
Fair election results, the number of seats a party wins should more closely reflect its share of the vote.
Strong local representation. Each geographic area of the province should have at least one representative. So those were, for us, very important objectives.
We think mixed member proportional meets those objectives.
And we believe that a mixed member proportional system will continue to produce governments that are stable and effective.
How does mixed member proportional work?
You have one ballot with 2 votes and 2 ways for MPP to be elected. It's really quite simple.
Before the election, parties nominate candidates for the electoral ridings, as they always have. They also nominate candidates to a party list.
On election day, you cast your vote. Remember, with MMP, you get 1 ballot, but you have 2 votes. 1 for a party and 1 for a local candidate. You vote for the party you want to support, and you can vote for the local candidate of your choice, from a different party if you like.
After the polls close, the votes are counted and the seats are allocated.
Your first vote, the one for a party, determines the share of seats each party gets in the legislature. That's the proportional in mixed member proportional. Proportional means that a party's share of the seats is about the same as its share of the party vote.
Once we know how many seats each party is entitled to, the next part is easy.
Each party, of course, is allocated its locally elected member.
If a party doesn't elect enough local members to add up to its full share of seats,
candidates from the party's list are elected to make up the difference.
We thought it was important, though, that a party has to get at least 3% of the overall vote to get a seat.
The parties create the lists in the order they want their candidates to be elected, if they require any list seats.
Voters will know well in advance of the election who these candidates are because the parties will file their lists with Elections Ontario.
Elections Ontario will make the list public so parties can show voters that their lists were created in a fair and open way, and whether their lists achieved greater gender balance, include candidates from all of Ontario's regions, and reflect the diversity of Ontario's population.
This was important to us, and we believe that it's important to you.
You may be wondering who would represent you in a mixed member proportional system. Well, your local member would represent your riding, just like now, and list members would give you a province-wide representation.
Ridings would have to be a bit bigger than they are now, and that was a concern to us. But we felt it was worth it to have a fair system.
Ultimately, you would have more representation than you have now.
The list members give you a new kind of representation. These members could concentrate on issues that matter to different regions in Ontario.
Like the north and rural areas, or broad issues that matter to us all, like the environment or healthcare, so you would be represented 2 ways.
So that's what we've recommended. On Election Day, October the 10th, 2007, there will be a referendum on our recommendation.
You'll vote as usual, but you'll also have your say on the electoral system we recommended. On that day, you'll decide the future of Ontario's electoral system.
Should we change it? That's up to you now.
We believe that the more you know about why and how the Assembly made its decision, the better you can judge if it is the best system for Ontario.
Whichever way you might be leaning now, we hope you'll want to learn more.
We have a brochure that gives you the highlights.
And you can get a copy of our report and learn even more about mixed member proportional and why we recommend it. We hope you'll read it.
Our website has a lot of information about what we learned about electoral systems, what we heard from you, and how we decided. Visit the site to learn more.
So we also knew that in the end, if we recommended change, it would be up to you.
We made what we believe is a solid recommendation on what we think would be the best electoral system for Ontario.
As a citizens' assembly, we were trusted to do that.
But the final decision is yours, Ontario, and we trust you to make it.
This is Democracy in Action.